It is September the 19th, and it is gray and raining like crazy outside, and my nose is still stuffed up. So we had basically 85, 95 degrees, and then we went straight to this. We had like a couple days in the 70s, but really it wasn't even a week of moderate weather. We went straight to 55 and pouring rain after not getting any rain for 3.5 months. So yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining, but it'd be nice to have a little bit of a fall because we didn't have a spring either. But today I thought we'd just talk about, let's see, what do we want to talk about? It's something on my mind. Oh yeah, I'm going to discuss just briefly a little bit of the financial analysis, or it's doing its thing again, isn't it? Where it's rocking like crazy, and you guys are gonna get nauseous trying to watch this darn thing. I don't know how to keep it steady. It's not gonna stay steady, is it? I need to just buy a second mount, don't I? That's annoying. Alright, if you push it real close. That's better. A little better, right? Alright. Everybody, tries to come around and say, this fall, in 6 months, we're going to have this action in the market, and we're going to have a crash, and we're going to see gold and silver melt up, finally break free of this, that, and the other thing. And, anybody who understands where we stand financially, as far as risks are concerned, we tend to just look for that next person who says, the time is time. Because we all know this game is a complete and utter joke. We all know that Main Street is not doing nearly as well as the Wall Street numbers would suggest, as well as knowing that employment rate is bullshit. You can't have a 4.7% unemployment rate, or right thereabouts, wherever it is today, and then have it's a 97 million or something in the out of the labor workforce. Like, those two numbers don't compute, right? So they've changed how unemployment is calculated. They changed it pretty drastically. First started changing it under Clinton, I believe, and then it's been adjusted even more so since then. So yeah, those are, most of those numbers, I mean, we're so statistically off base with how things should be calculated that they wouldn't even know how to get the right number anymore if they had to. They've been living the lie. They've been just as deep in the lie as most of mainstream America has. So, other than that, I mean, we've just been sitting there going, okay, this is 22,000 Dow. This is nonsense. We know at this point that gold and silver are pretty well manipulated. We don't know to what extent, but we know price discovery has been, suppressed at least since the Federal Reserve came into power. And we know that precious metals have always been that one weapon that any government issuer of paper currency has not wanted to let that weapon loose, because it just shows how full of nonsense their currency is. And that's why they didn't want the restraints. Nobody wants the restraints of saying, hey, you can only print X amount of dollars this month, because you have this underlying asset that has a fixed value or a fixed amount, and doesn't let the big boys play the way they want to play. So I got into this pretty heavy, and I was sitting there going, there's no way that past 2014 they can keep up this Ponzi scheme, this charade of debt creation. All the numbers were so bad then. Everything was such a lie. I was pretty heavily convinced that when Joel Skousen came out and said we're going to have war in 2016, 2017, and he said we're going to have war with Russia in 2016 and 2017. And I read that in 2012. I'm like, no way, we're not making it that long, man. They've just turned this whole financial Ponzi scheme into this, ticking derivative time bomb, and something's going to happen. We're either going to go to war earlier or have a global reset before that. But here we are now, 4 months until 2018, and the can's still kicking. So So I've taken a huge step back over probably the past 12 months with regard to all these people out there. And you see the frustration, because it's not that all these people are wrong. It's that this is the first time in history that we've had all these different kinds of financial instruments and computer algorithms and so on and so forth that can so heavily manipulate a market in any direction in which they need it to be manipulated in. And obviously right now it's, you know, hiding true market discovery, market price, mark to market, I guess. They can hide mark to market on bonds and any other debt issuance that they have out there. You saw that in the, they even admitted it in the oil contracts, fracking contracts. When oil prices got their butt handed to them a couple years ago, they were openly saying they're going to delay mark to market on these contracts, because if they did, then, you know, the oil industry would start to turn upside down, and the financiers of these debt instruments would start to turn upside down. And so, you know, basically, I don't know, you know, at this point, I don't know what the end game is. I have no flipping clue. And I'm certainly under the impression that there are several players in the game. This is not, you know, all the central banks of the world and all the elitists of the world are sitting there on the same page trying to decide, you know, when they're gonna, you know, execute their grand plan. I think if that was the case, we would have seen this thing moving in their direction faster, and a lot less of, you know, geopolitical turmoil. But you cannot say you are the reserve of the world, you know, United States USD being the world reserve currency, and then debase your currency at the rate in which we're debasing it. Now, I know a lot of people in the United States have no idea, but you can guarantee every other government out there who has to hold US paper in order to purchase oil, or, you know, just to purchase anything on the open global market, is not too happy with our monetary policy, certainly since 2008. Because every time you print a dollar, it devalues another dollar that somebody else is holding out there. So if you're China, you're Japan, or you're any of these European countries, or up and coming emerging markets, and you're holding a bunch of USD, you know, and you're sitting there going, okay, they just monetized 200 billion worth of this last month, and they've been doing that for the last 24 months. And, you know, at some point that the market does discover that dilution. Now, they've done a really good job of printing a bunch of money and then hiding money velocity. So basically they take the money that's printed, it's either, you know, it's dark pooled, a lot of it's dark pooled, so it's never on the books. And then it gets hidden in assets. It gets hidden by the people at the very top, whether it's financial assets, financial or asset purchases. You know, they'll park it in trusts. They'll park it, you know, basically they keep it out of the free-flowing economy. They'll do foreign investment. They'll do, you know, there's at least $20 trillion that are outside of the U.S. banking system that are parked in various places. So, you know, between, you know, the equalization or the ESF, between dark pooled money, between people of extraordinary wealth that are hiding it, basically keeping it, whether it's in assets, whether it's in markets, whether it's in trusts, you know, whatever it might be, bonds, they're hiding it from the marketplace. They're really trying to keep that, as you can see by the charts on money velocity, is like at all-time low. We've never had this much money creation with this much or this low of money velocity in history. So there's a few charts out there that show this giant gap, and completely abnormal like everything else. So, you know, the markets are just super screwy, and you know what, I don't even try to guess. You know, you got to keep one foot in reality, and you got to keep one foot in this reality, which is, you know, I always say reality is your perception, but it doesn't make it reality, right? Your reality is how you perceive things, but if you're perceiving everything incorrectly, then the reality you think you live in is not reality. And a lot of people at some point will go, holy crap, you know, I thought this was going on, I thought this was how everything was working, I thought I thought everything was, peaches and cream. We've got this awesome recovery, and then they'll get slapped in the face, and a lot of people will lose the shirt off their back when this happens. But I'm keeping one foot in both. You got to keep living your day to day. You got to stay, you got to stay financially solvent in the day to day. You've got to, work towards your life. You got to take your kids to school. You've got to, make a living. You've got to, you still have social events. You gotta, even if you're aware, you still can't go all in, because if you don't time it right, you lose a lot of money, you lose a lot of opportunity that you might have had. So you kind of got to straddle that line. Just be aware that when things do go south, and who knows, if that's a black swan event, who knows if that's finally a coordinated effort of central banks to deflate the bubbles that they've created, whether that's a loss of USD as the global reserve currency. Maybe there's something in China, maybe something goes on with North Korea and all their craziness right now. But maybe they do take us to World War III just so they can have a global reset and a reason to say. That tends to be their MO. They go to war and then they reset the system, start with something new. So that's I think is probably their ideal plan, is to do something along those lines. But maybe they're successful at it, maybe they're not. Who knows? I certainly think there's a lot of butting heads that's going on. I certainly don't think these people are all on the same page. And we've really abused our power as the global reserve currency, not only in monetary printing, but basically dictating everybody else's financial policy, while we don't really create anything. I mean, our export is financial instruments. That's what our it's what the United States is. That's all we are anymore. Is we export financial instruments and create debt. Debt creation. And at some point it'll end badly. When it does, I feel like at least I'll know what's going on. At least I have some cushions if that does occur. I can heat my house if there's power interruptions. I can feed my family if there's supply chain interruptions. I can defend myself if there's emergency services and your local police forces are overwhelmed for whatever reason. So yeah, I'm not building a giant bunker underground, and I'm not going to go live in it and be fearful of it. I'm not fearful of it. I know it's an inevitability at some point, but I might be, it might be 7 years, 7 years. I mean, who knows how long down the road. Common sense, would tell us that the game's up. You got The Economist magazine, 2018, get ready for a new global currency. So maybe that's gold backed. Did have a gold medallion, but then it has some kind of occult symbols on that thing as well. So if that group is losing their power, some people think they're losing their power, and it is a Rothschild magazine after all, right? So just keep a level head, and think critically about what anybody says. There's a lot of really smart people out there who've been wrong for 5-7 years, and even those people have their arms in the air going, who the hell knows anymore? The can has just been kicked for so long and so hard that that it's just really anybody's guess at this point. There's a lot going on. Things have been really busy since Trump got into office. He's only 8 months in, and there's just been craziness. The cryptos are a cool new thing. Maybe the cryptos are going to play a part in allowing us to have a more reasonable transition once we do lose the global reserve currency. Or maybe they're just good hedges in case hyperinflation happens. Either way, I'm going to have a little bit of them. They're a good hedge to have. It's a good place to be diverse in. Obviously your tangibles of gold and silver are always good bets, right? Have a little bit of that. And we just go about our life. Make goals. Make your life goals right now, so that they are in this reality. The reality that most of us feel is not the real reality or situation, but you know, it is what we're living in right now. So make your goals, whether you're going to school and you're like, you know, I got 2 years left on, you know, this, and I want to enter this field, but I think everything's going to go to shit. So, you know, maybe I need to change. Just finish the damn thing. You know, finish up get that degree and go become go become an architect or whatever it is you're trying to do. Get into that field. While it doesn't mean you can't handle your finances to be prepared, right? So maybe you say, okay, I've got this townhome in town. Well, I'm gonna get this other house that's out on a couple acres. You know, I'm gonna have to commute about 15-20 minutes to work, but just in case I am right, or just in case this happens, now I've got a little bit of privacy. I've got a little bit of area to have a garden. So I'm not going to be the brunt of looting if the inner cities turn to hell. Things like that. So you don't have to just abandon the world we live in now, even if that world seems to be pretty false to many people who are awake to the situations that are going on. But you've got to be prudent moving forward in this world while preparing for a transition that we don't know how it's going to happen. We don't know what the triggers are going to be. We don't know when it's going to happen, but you can do both at the same time. And I think that's the most prudent spot is understanding that you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to live based upon one paradigm in its entirety. So just like you would diversify a financial portfolio, you want to diversify your life. If you really are aware of these things, you certainly don't want to go, be working in a cubicle as a financial analyst and have a condo on the 53rd floor in some building in downtown Chicago and, not have a car, have 5 items in your refrigerator, and, and then say, well, this is, that's, people do that, obviously. But if you're somebody who feels the way I do and many other people do, that, this financial system's kind of upside down and geopolitically very unstable at the moment, you might not want to do all those things. You can go into town, you can work as a financial analyst, but kind of prepare your other life, outside of work for your family in a different fashion, so that, you can handle some of these things if they do come down the pike. So I think that's all we're going to talk about today. That just kind of sprung into my mind. I was listening to a couple of videos, one with the JSNP 4's Lindsey Williams summary, and it's just more of the same crap. And JSNP said that as well. It's just like, at this point you throw your hands in the air and go, okay, I've heard that before a million times. So that's it for today, guys, and I'll check back with you guys soon. Thanks.